thank you for your patience, and I want to welcome everyone to this student showcase of the Open Pedagogy UN SDG Fellowship. We're especially excited this year because it's the first time that we've had an international partnership with our colleagues from Kwantlen Polytechnic University in British Columbia, Canada. And the faculty that work together, I think, have produced some amazing assignments, and the students that have worked on those assignments, you're going to see the fruits of that labor today. We're also excited because we're welcoming in colleagues from Maricopa Community College in Arizona, and they'll be partnering with us as we roll out this fellowship this summer. So we'll have Maricopa, Montgomery, and Kwantlen faculty all working together. Okay, so with that, let me turn it over to my good friend in British Columbia, Rajiv Jangiani. Rajiv?
Thank you, Michael. We can't see everybody in the room, but hello to everyone, faculty and students at Montgomery. I'll just briefly say, because many of the faculty in the room, of course, already know about the fellowship, but we have, of course, many students with us and some guests as well. The fellowship to design renewable assignments that focus on the Sustainable Development Goals for the United Nations was an idea that was pioneered by our friends at Montgomery. And we were lucky to learn about it at a conference and reached out to see if we could potentially partner. And of course, they very graciously immediately said yes. And so this past year has been a bit of an experiment. It has not only been international, not only interinstitutional, it has also been multidisciplinary. Because each of the teams of faculty have been working together in groups of 2 or 3 across very different disciplines to design these assignments that have students creating resources that serve the public good, that connect their skill development with some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. So it's been, I think, really invigorating there to see. We didn't quite know how it would go, especially across the virtual environment, those collaborations, and to see how it would manifest in disciplines ranging from urban ecosystems to anthropology to math and English. So I only say that I think what we're about to see is what we've all been hoping for. The meetings up to this point have been with the faculty, working together, sharing ideas, workshopping, refining. But for the students who are with us here across both institutions, and of course the many, many more students who participated in these classes, this really represented, I think, our hopes. Our highest aspirations is what we've achieved. And so we're really, really grateful to hear from you today, to how it went, how you experienced it. But also just want to express gratitude to our colleagues at Montgomery for being so immediately agreeable to allowing us to join them and learn from them. And as Michael mentioned, now expanding even further as we keep receiving requests from other institutions that want to join this. So it's going to be a three-phased partnership next year, certainly. And that call will be going out next week for us at KDU, call for participation next year. Back to you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Rajiv. The fellowship has garnered a lot of attention at various conferences. Rajiv's been able to present at several international conferences, and my good colleague and good friend Shinta Hernandez and I had the pleasure of presenting at Open Ed this past year on the work that the fellowship has produced. Rajiv gets Milan, we got Phoenix. But it was a good trade-off. This year, we're working and we've submitted a grant to the U.S. Embassy in Russia to send some faculty to Lake Baikal in Siberia. The Russians have a great interest in the SDGs, so we put in a proposal to send a group to Lake Baikal in Siberia to study the SDGs around open pedagogy. So we're hoping to hear from that grant proposal within the next couple of weeks. At this point, let me turn it over to Shinta Hernandez, who has done a lot of work, most of the work on our end for this fellowship and certainly for this event. And without her, I couldn't do half of what we have accomplished with the fellowship. Shinta.
Thank you for that introduction. Mike, can everyone hear me? I hope Rajiv and all you can hear me. Okay, I had to lower down the microphone, so that's why I had to double check. I just want to share with you some data from this year's cohort and compare that to last year's cohort, because when I look at the data, I get so excited. I don't know if you're like me, but I want to share the data with you so you can see the growth and thus the impact that the work that is being done by our students and the supporting faculty have engaged in through this open pedagogy and community engagement work. So this summer we had 13 faculty fellows, and across the two institutions we had 6 teams, and collectively they represented 11 disciplines. And these faculty across Montgomery College and KPU deployed their assignments this past fall in 19 different courses, 28 different sections, and over 700 students participated in these assignments. So just to give you an idea of the vast impact that this potentially has, compared to the first year we did it, which was just Montgomery College, it was still great magnitude. We had 15 faculty fellows, same number of disciplines that were represented, but over 500 students participating. So we had a nice 200 student growth here. And to us, that is super exciting. And we can only imagine what this is going to look like for the next summer 2020 fellowship when we add a third partner to the stage. So we will have Montgomery College, KPU, and the Maricopa Community College System in Arizona. And I believe Debbie Baker and perhaps others from Maricopa, are you online as well? I think they were. Maybe they're muted, but they are. And hello and welcome, Maricopa. On that note, I don't know if, Mike, you had any final words before we move on. So let's do this. This is the format of our showcase. So we have 9 students presenting. In front of you should have a program. And what I'm going to ask is that the faculty member come up and introduce your student and introduce the assignment, just a few words about the assignment on which the student project was based. And then we will just continue through in the order that you see on the program. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll continue again. Does that sound fair to everybody? All right, Rajiv, did you have any last comments before we move on?
No, I will mute us at this end while we are not presenting.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Nathan Zook, political science here at Rockville, who will introduce his student. So let me bring up the slides for you.
Good afternoon. So our topic was the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 17 on sustainable cities and communities. And so the course I'm teaching is Politics in the Developing World. And although we're not in the developing world, I wanted to find some opportunity for fieldwork research. And so I allowed them to look at, or asked them to look at communities in this area that are going through development issues and issues related to sustainable communities, how people can feel at home there, given maybe gentrification and other issues taking place. And so Radhika Kunali-Marsh was an exceptional student in my class. She did a topic on Tacoma and the neighborhood in DC, and she looked at everything from Realtor Association websites to U.S. Census data and other types of research. And then she also was required to interview people who have lived there more than 10 years and less than 2 years to get sort of a framework of how sustainable these changes are for the local citizens. So, thank you. Radhika.
Thank you, Dr. Zook. Is it working?
Rajiv, can you see the screen on your end?
Yes, yes, both you and the screen.
Okay. Alrighty. So for my project, I did choose Tacoma, DC. I gotta figure out how to. Here we go. Okay. So Tacoma is one of the oldest neighborhoods in DC. It is located in the 4th Ward in the northwest quadrant. It's often confused with Tacoma Park, Maryland. So as you can see, it borders, it's very close to Silver Spring, and part of the confusion about why, Tacoma Park and Tacoma, DC is because they were once pretty much one and the same. So here are some newspaper clippings from 1887 and 1891, which express the delight of new homes being built and sold. So today, Tacoma has a population of over 3,971 people, and it's currently growing. Most of those people work white-collar jobs. So this map shows the segregation within DC between the 1950s and the 1970s. As you can see, between those time frames, hundreds of people and families have moved in. While this can be positive, Tacoma specifically has become increasingly gentrified. In the graphic on the right, you can see the number of homes being built starting from 1939. Today, these total about 1,500 households. It is also important to mention that the education quality has risen, which has led to an increase in income level. The area has changed a lot since first developing in 1924. This was a railroad right over here that was formed when Tacoma split between DC and Maryland. So a lot of most of Tacoma's homes are still historical homes. A lot of them have been added to the National Historic Register. This is the Katie Lee home. It's beautiful, it's still standing, and it's gorgeous. Again, not everything has changed. Homes and buildings like the Tacoma Public Library have been renovated in order to keep its history and the beauty of the architecture. This actually, when I last visited, the outside was being renovated, and I believe the inside is now done as well. So this is a home in the area. I don't know if you can see the top there, but its estimate has been, the estimate was $673,000 last year. That was around fall, and it has decreased by about $5,000. The most expensive home is still under $1 million. So when I interviewed homeowners and business owners in this neighborhood, they all had pros and cons to living in this up-and-coming neighborhood. As you can see from these interviews, more cons have been developed. So the biggest complaints would be little privacy, traffic. It's a very small neighborhood, and a lot of people are moving in. So this kind of creates a little bit of tension between the people that used to live there and then the new people that are coming in. Some positives would be increased walkability. There's more social interaction, and this can actually help it economically develop. So when thinking about what makes a sustainable neighborhood, many think of a place that is safe and well-built and will last a long time. Tacoma has been slowly changing to be these things. It recently celebrated being 30 years nuclear-free. It has reliable transportation with metro buses as well as a metro station. And the preservation of history helps to keep both old and new communities engaged with each other. This project has taught me, well, that sustainability is important to everyone in the neighborhood, whether they express it or not. And it taught me that while being well-built and modern can help increase the economy and quality of life, history and the lessons learned from it are equally as important. Thank you.
What to do with the audio issues?
Shikha, you have to make us the presenter so we can take over screen share.
All right, we just did it.
Hi there, everybody. Hi, Deb. Long time no see. Michelle is also in the room here. Not that you can see her, but our team was Michelle Franklin from ISH, the Institute for Sustainable Horticulture, me from Urban Ecosystems, and Deb Costin from Anthropology/Archaeology at Montgomery. And the SDG goal that we agreed upon is SDG number 2, zero hunger on this planet by the year 2030. So Megan, I asked Megan to present our findings, whatever what we ended up doing, because she was in all the classes, except for the research class. And I will do a shout out here to Michelle, who wasn't actually teaching in one of the classes that you could incorporate that, but within our upper level graduating research project, we now are asking our students to identify what SDGs their research relates to, just at a very basic level, that we try and find some relevance to global issues, and that it's not just looking through the microscope without thinking about this is actually useful to anybody besides me getting marks and getting up here. So with that, I will let Megan take over, and I think you just have to click the mouse and it'll come up. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Hello, my name is Megan Genuis. I'm in my third year at Kwantlen. I'm in the Urban Ecosystems degree. And so today I'll be doing this presentation on the various assignments that we worked on. We worked on them last semester, focusing in on the SDG number 2, Zero Hunger. So before I get into it, I would just like to acknowledge and give thanks to the Kwantlen First Nation for allowing us to meet on their land. Kwantlen is situated on the unceded, unrelinquished lands of the Kwantlen First Nation. So as I was saying, last year in the fall of 2019, students worked on various renewable assignments to address the SDG number 2, Zero Hunger, hoping to attain it by 2030. So the following slides, we're going to be talking a bit about those assignments, what we did, and the result that we came up with. Okay, assignment number 1 was carried out by 15 students in the Applied Urban Ecosystems course. It was called Mapping Food Access in Our Neighborhood. The objective was to understand the difference between food deserts, food mirage, and food swamp. A food desert is where there is no immediate access to healthy, affordable, locally grown produce. And food mirage is, while there is an abundance of available food, it is unaffordable. And lastly, the food swamp is where there's an abundance of food, however, it's quite often unhealthy food purchased from a fast food or a convenience store. The method that we used to complete this assignment was mind maps on Google. We found that there was a limitation that we could only use 10 layers to 10 categories. We then created an Excel spreadsheet with geo-coordinates for pinning locations. And then after we assessed whether or not the City of Langley was either in a food desert, food swamp, food mirage, or perhaps a combination. Here are the following results. We have result number 1. We found that much of the southern side of City of Langley was in a food desert. Provided the image below there to give you the visual representation of the food desert. Result number 2, while the southern side of City of Langley, we determined that the rest was in a food swamp. So it was lots of available choices, unhealthy yet affordable. Result number 3, we determined sources within the City of Langley that offered free food. You can use this link. By clicking on it, you can go directly to the group project and view the work that we did on Google My Maps to view the sources of food that we documented. Assignment number 2 was executed by a combination of students in the vegetation management course, along with the inventory assessment and modern plant community course. The objectives for this assignment was to create a checklist of weedy plants. So we meandered along the Langley campus to find our species of weedy plants. And then we were to assess whether or not they could be edible or if they had medicinal properties to benefit humans. We used the app, it's called iNaturalist, in order to find, take photos, and upload them onto our project. Kathy gave us a target of 50 weedy plant species, and after that, we helped each other to get a research data on the app. by verifying the type of species it was, and it really helped us improve our plant ID skills. By clicking on this link here, it allows you to go directly to our group page and view the work that we did on iNaturalist. We had a total of 2,063 observations with a total of 291 species. Assignment number 3, eat leaves and you will be nourished. This was performed by 14 students in the vegetation management course. The task for this course was to choose one of the weedy plants that we found in assignment number 2 and do an in-depth research on it, of a biography, 2 to 5 pages. We were to find anthropological origin, go into the botany, find the distribution, etc. And then we peer reviewed each other's papers so that we could then publish it on the Logan Creek Decolonization Journal. Project number 4 for bonus mark, that's always good, was carried out by 15 students. They collaborated on a Word document of 52 pages, and the document was an annotated bibliography called Free Food for All. The following are topics that we worked on to help address SDG number 20, hunger, in the annotated bibliography right there. So overall, this presentation was to talk about the various assignments that we worked on in order to address SDG number 2, zero hunger. Students have determined that the City of Langley is both a food desert and a food swamp. And my favorite is that we gain a new perspective on weeds and how they can be used as a solution to address zero hunger. Thank you so much, guys.
Hello? We good? Okay. Do you want to try this?
You're live.
I am live, and everyone can hear me, right?
No, they can.
Okay. All right. Well, wonderful presentations. But, technology is a wonderful thing, isn't it? We'll get this right one day. So we have our next student presenter with her supporting faculty, and actually Professor James Ruggle, you have 2 students who are coming up, right? So we will have you come up, introduce your assignments as well as your 2 students.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Good to go now?
Let's do a test check.
Okay.
Rajiv, can you hear us? Is this better? We're using a phone this time.
When all else fails.
All right, so I guess we don't have to worry about this. Just speak, presenters, speak directly into my phone.
Okay.
And if you need a clicker, here it is. All right, great. All right, Professor Ruggle.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's James Ruggle. I'm Professor of History at Montgomery College, and I had the pleasure of collaborating with Dr. Zook on this project. I had the honor of working with a group of students this past fall semester in my World History and 20th Century class that actually pushed me to reevaluate how I teach this course. And I've been teaching this course for 6 years now, so this is saying it's not lightly at all. One of their assignments was to select a city and analyze its response to a natural or human-made disaster that took place from the period of 1980 to today. This process included a vast amount of in-depth research in order to fully understand how this urban center attempted to address this issue, and in some cases revealed that the urban center failed to try at all. And in some remarkable cases, students actually talking about in their papers and in their analysis what urban centers could do in the future to address these issues before they happen. So studying the past to understand the present, to face the future. This remarkable group of students, just sitting up right up here, included Tristan Draycott, who analyzed Mumbai's response to the 2005 flood, Franz Bellinger's review of the nonprofit organization Red Crescent in Damascus, Syria, during the early phases of the Syrian civil war, and Louisa Buckup, who assessed the role of international humanitarian organizations in Kigali during the Rwanda genocide. Take this opportunity. Tristan's opted to not to present today, but I want to take this opportunity to say that graduate school is waiting for you, and it is an understatement, which I guess makes sense since I'm from Scotland, so we're typically in our understatements, to say that his caliber of research and writing is something that is aspiring. They'll just have to wait. They won't know what hit them. Louisa and Franz have been kind enough to share their time and present today, but the order is going to be switched a bit. Franz is going to go first, and then go to Louisa. So by all means, thank you.
All right. Hello. So as my professor said, my name is Franz Bellinger. I did a paper on the Syrian civil war and focusing on the city of Damascus, which is the capital of Syria. And the year I chose was 2011. What you can see on the title page is just a Red Crescent worker helping a small child as a casualty of the Syrian civil war. I don't think the clicker's working.
If you'll just speak loud to the phone.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can. A little louder? Sure, yeah, sorry about that. If you want, I can just yell and press the keys on the keyboard if that's
Or,
easy.
you know what, since you're going to be using the phone anyway, you're welcome to take the phone with you and travel over.
Over there, okay,
Yeah.
okay. See,
Since you're
as
not
long as I have
flying
like
to the
one
microphone.
hand free, yep, that'd be great.
Hold that up.
Hold that to my face, okay. Perfect. This is normal.
That's
Okay.
a new look now.
Great, great. Okay. So so as I said, this was an essay that I wrote on a humanitarian organization, the Syrian Arab Red Crescent. I said the year was 2011. I meant to say 2013. So, and as Mr. Fergal said, we were told to write an essay describing a recent catastrophe. It could have been environmental, political, or involving the military. The one I chose was sort of a combination of political and military. And as I said, we were to determine how a particular city responded. So I chose Damascus again during 2013. I think I made that pretty clear. So what I focused on in my paper, first I just talked as briefly as one could about the background of the Syrian civil war. On the left, you can see Bashar al-Assad, who is the current president of Syria, and he's been the president throughout the civil war. The war itself has roots in peaceful student demonstrations, which began in 2011, which were demanding social and political reform. These demonstrations coalesced into the creation of the Free Syrian Army, which consists of military defects, people wanting reform, and even extremist Islamist organizations. Members of those organizations have joined as well. So it oversimplifies a little bit, but the two main sides of the war are pro and anti-Assad factions. But as you'll see, it's a little bit more complicated than that. As I said, Bashar al-Assad is the president. He's been the president since, I'm going to move this, 2000. He's been the president since 2000, and the Assad family has ruled since 1971, referring to his father. Assad is an Alawi Muslim, which is a minority in Syria and a subsect of Shia Islam. And as I said, his main opposition consists of the Free Syrian Army and Islamic extremist organizations. So just a section of my paper basically said, Assad, referred to by some as a new Hitler, has had little role in relieving the destruction brought by either his own forces or those of his enemies. In fact, his intent is only to exacerbate it. Regime forces and cutting off rebel supply chains to the area also restricted medical aid, food shipments, and movement in and out of the areas, referring to the suburbs of Damascus, which is one of which is Fasihi. I don't know if I'm saying that right. This means that occupants of any area occupied by rebels, consisting largely of peaceful civilians, were now considered the enemy. So after giving the background of the Syrian civil war, I focus mostly on the Syrian Arab Red Crescent. So let's see if I can memorize since I can't see the first section. So basically, the Syrian Arab Red Crescent is an offshoot of the humanitarian organization known as the Red Crescent. In Syria, it has 14 branches and 18 sub-branches, which New York Times' Anne Bernard claimed in an article she wrote a little while ago is indicative of Syria's political diversity. But Assad basically corrupted or sort of manipulated even this neutral humanitarian organization, as made evident in Damascus, where the Red Crescent is headquartered. The Damascus branch, headed by a businessman close to Mr. Assad, basically viewed the opposition as a tool of a tool of the state. To be able to read my presentation. Widely viewed the opposition as a tool of the state and was accused of delivering humanitarian aid disproportionately to his own army's forces rather than the rebel army's casualties. So in addition to corruption, his regime has exhibited a Soviet-like paranoia in that officials are paranoid that these Red Crescent workers, volunteers, aiding rebel areas, like first aid and things like that, are returning with their impressions, meaning that they're returning with the Sunnis' dislike of Assad and the Alawites. Not only is this misguided, but Red Crescent volunteers actually return with more insight into the non-sectarian nature of the war, meaning it's not strictly a religious war, it also has social and political reasons. Despite notions that this war is hopeless, Red Crescent first responders not only experience day-to-day heartbreak, but some actually emerge with a pretty powerful sense of optimism. So, for example, one volunteer, Muhammad, whose family fled from a bombarded suburb to the Crescent's headquarters in Damascus, says, "You save one soul, you see the smile of one child, it gives you power for months." And there was also a sense of unity felt by some of these workers. One said, "I started to love the country. Many of us started to feel that we really belong," said 21-year-old Raghav, another volunteer. So my conclusion, if I have time, hopefully, okay. Well, basically my ideas about what we can do about it. Unfortunately, the answer is very complicated. In a way, we would have done something already, which makes the Syrian dilemma all the more pressing as innocent people and those fighting for their freedom continue to die in a supposedly civilized world. So my thoughts on what we can do is that we can understand the war first by understanding the major players and their motives, like why is the war happening. Next, we can understand what is already being done to aid victims of the war, such as the humanitarian organization Arab trying to be open-ended. So, yeah, and this is just another picture. So, the end.
We're pulling your slides and just like Franz, just hold it up like this. And you are welcome to use the clicker that is over there if you'd like. Thank you. Hi, my name is Luisa Bukupi. Yeah, sorry. My essay was about the Rwandan genocide, which happened in 1994. It started in April and it lasted 100 days. And in those 100 days, almost 1 million people were killed. So basically Rwanda was divided into three ethnic groups, the majority being the Hutus and the minority being the Tutsis. And in April, after years and years of one hating each other, the Hutus started a systematic killing to exterminate the Tutsis. This is what they were told to do by the media when the president was assassinated. We don't know who killed him yet, but this is clear what they wanted them to do. They wanted the Hutus to kill everybody they could find. What they would do, they would set up roadblocks and they would stop any incoming vehicles and any person that was coming to show them identification cards, which will tell them if they were Tutsis or Hutus. If they were Tutsis, they were just killed on sight. This person, he was one of the only. He was the leader of one of the groups that were attempting to save as many people as they could during the genocide. He said that, this is in 1993, he said that already while he was talking to the president before he was assassinated, he said that the Rwandan people, their hearts were mined with hatred. After years of instability, like I mentioned, they were a peacekeeping force of the United Nations was assigned to Rwanda to make sure that the peace accords were established. There were almost 2,000 troops there at the time. This is Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire. He was one of the, also the leaders of one of the organizations who was there. And he said that, he tells the story of one case that he was walking, they were driving a car, and he said that usually people would put kids on the road and to stop convoys from coming so they could stop and kill everybody that was in there. So they see this 3-year-old kid, and they get down with their guns up because they expect an ambush, but there's no ambush. The kid is just by himself, and they go inside the huts of the village nearby to look for the parents of the child to see if they could come get him, and they see that everybody is dead. They don't know how this child is still alive at the end of what happened. Everybody, their corpses have been decaying for days, and he says that he looked into the eyes of that child and he saw nothing different from any other human child out there. And he wonders, are all humans human, or are some more human than others? That's a very powerful quotation. Ambulances were being stopped, and everybody that was in the ambulance was being taken to the side of the road and also killed. The MSF, for the first time in history, they called for an armed intervention because you cannot stop a genocide with doctors. I'd like to read something that I wrote about this. I wanted to say that before, but I forgot. Throughout history, we humans have been distancing and disconnecting ourselves from a certain group of people, so the pain and harm we inflict them don't affect us. We start to call them the other, and this other has had different faces during different times. The other came from a different country, region, or tribe. The other was not considered civilized, they needing therefore to be saved. The other had a darker skin, and for that reason were enslaved. After all, they weren't us. The other had a different faith or religion, and for that, we made them pay. Millions of people were killed throughout history because they were viewed as the other by someone. In Rwanda, that wasn't different. That's it.
Thank you.
Such great presentations this afternoon. We have one more right before our break. So Professor Zev Kossen from Anthropology will come up and introduce his student. And then also right before break, I'll offer an opportunity for all of us in the live audience as well as virtually to ask any questions that you might have of the faculty and the students. So if you have questions, jot them down. Here we go, Professor Kossen. Yes, do this.
Hope you charged your
Very
phone today.
I did. I was at 90, so hopefully it'll stay.
Yeah,
Roughly around there. But if not, I have to start it.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Zev Kossen. I'm a faculty member in anthropology here at MC. As Kathy and her student, I believe it was Megan, if I'm not mistaken, first introduced, I was paired with Kathy Dunster and Michelle Franklin from Sustainable Horticulture, Urban Ecosystems, and so we put together this series of assignments related to the target number 2, zero hunger, and then some of the interrelated SDG goals like sustainable communities. And so from a anthropological point of view, I deployed these assignments in my class, which was Anthropology 215. It's called Human Evolution and Archaeology. And so the idea there was to sort of make the story of human evolution really grapple how humans have evolved over the past 6 million years, always in relation to our environments, and how we can take the lessons of that story, that evolutionary journey, to better understand some of the crises of our own making as humans today, and how we can take actually very real steps using the lessons of anthropology. So I deployed 2 of the assignments in my classes here at Rockville and at Germantown. The first was this sort of weed bio blitz, and so we relied a lot on the folks at KPU and the iNaturalist community to do a lot of the identifying of the weeds. But as archaeologists, we actually went out on our campus and did this as a class. So we did a sort of archaeological survey, and instead of looking for surface ceramics and artifacts, which we would do as archaeologists, we were looking for edible or medicinal weeds. And so we did that through iNaturalist, which all of us here can actually use and record and look up plants all around us. And then the second part was for students to choose one of those weeds and then do a 2-part ethnobotany. The first part was to choose a weed, like we've already heard about, that has some sort of edible, medicinal, cultural property. And then the second part was to choose some sort of plant with a personal meaning, something that to you in your own life, whether it's ancestral or some sort of meaning to you in your family or whatever it is, to describe that relationship that you have with a specific plant around the world, to think about the coevolution of humans and plants as a total ecology. So I had many great projects, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce one of those students, who is Eduardo Chavez. So I'll turn it over to him.
My name is Eduardo Chavez. I'm a student at Montgomery College, and I'm an international student. I come from Venezuela, and this is my presentation for this assignment. I want to explain a little bit about what a weed is first. A weed is a plant that we can't find a use for, that is unwanted, and so we get rid of it. The problem with that definition is that there's a lot of plants that they can be used. There are medicinal uses or as a food source, that we don't know about it, and that's why we get rid of it. That's kind of what this project was about, and something that I became passionate about as the research came on. So I want to explain a little about what we did in terms of archaeological studies. The survey that we did was on Thursday, October 24th, 2019. It happened between 11:30 and 12. All groups in our class split up. We took one group to Zone 5, as we had designated in the map of the college itself, which is a lot of the parking lot, the Robert E. Perella Performing Arts Center, Welcome Arts Center, that whole area outside, where we're going to survey for weeds. And I was personally tasked with surveying outside of the Welcome Center. These are a few of the pictures that I took. You can see that the visibility on the ground was high, especially because the grass around it had been cut and maintained by staff and facility. There have been several plants that have been growing around the cracks in the pavement, which are, some of these are weeds and some of these are observable. And there were also a lot of plants that were growing next to the Welcome Center itself. They were against the wall of the center. During my exploration in my survey, I did see that there was a small white flower, which is called, well, we'll figure it out in a little bit, but as I was looking at it, it kind of hit me that it was the only flower that I had seen. And I used iNaturalist to take a picture of it, and it was identified as an American aster. So that's the flower that I created a whole project about. The American aster itself is a genus of flowering plants that are found in Eurasia and North America. They have over 600 species totals. There wasn't an exact species identification for this, so it's one of those three, either the New England aster, the New York aster, or the whitewood aster. As I was doing research on this, I figured out that it is a perennial plant, which means that it lives for 2 years or longer. They are flowering plants because that is the easiest way to identify it. And the aster is named after the Greek word aster, which means star, and it refers to the shape of the flower. The uses of the aster during time for humans has been seen as a garden flower for one part, because it is a very beautiful flower, small and colorful. They have been used in medicinal. They have medicinal uses in China and Native American medicine, and they have been cooked. At least their leaves have, and their roots have been used in stews and soups. I did find that there was a way to use the aster itself to make a tea, and I have here noted down one of these recipes. It is good to harvest it in the early morning. You have to cut the stem at a certain length to be able to get the best use of the plant. You just hang it upside down to be able to remove the humidity from it, and the flower itself will become white and fluffy, and they're still usable. After that, you put it in a glass container, and you can use it up to a year. So it does actually have a use, just we didn't know about it at the time. And after that, we also were asked to use a plant that has a special significance to us. And for that, I chose the African baobab. This is found natively in Africa in several different countries. It is a deciduous tree which emits its sheds ripe fruit. It can grow over 30 meters tall and 25 meters in diameter. It can live over 400 years, and there's one specimen in South Africa that has been carbon dated to have survived for 6,000 years. The baobab itself is derived from the name in Arabic that means father of many seeds. And Andersonia was the name from Michael Anderson, French naturalist, who surveyed Senegal and classified the plant itself. And he also mentioned during his travels that the baobab is probably the most useful tree of all of them. Why is this the truth? Well, the baobab has survived long droughts. It has to survive very difficult weather in some places in Africa. And it actually stores a lot of water inside of it, up to 30,000 gallons of water. Some bushmen in the Kalahari Desert actually use grass straws to suck water out of the tree itself and use it to survive. They can also hollow it out, and it actually serves as a recipient for a lot of water, which villages use to store water. The baobab itself is known as the tree of life because it's been used as a source of food and income for centuries for a lot of people, even today. The leaves are used as condiments and medicines. The bark is fire resistant, and they actually make clothing and rope out of it. And they have even discovered that there have been baobab seeds in ancient Egyptian tombs, which very likely means that these fruits were traded up to Egypt, even though like in Egypt there isn't any baobab trees. They were traded up to there, and it was considered a delicacy that even appeared in the tombs of the pharaohs. And Also, the baobab appears in a story called The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The tree itself, in the story, it's used to represent a small problem that becomes a larger problem. As it's when it starts as a seed, it seems to be pretty insignificant, but as it grows, it can actually destroy one of the planets that the Little Prince lives in. And I read this book in middle school, and that's why it resonated with me. But also because, as a Venezuelan, I was living in Venezuela at the time, and I was working in community service at the Jardín Botánico de Maracaibo, which is the botanical garden of the city of Maracaibo. There is a small map there so you can see where it is located, sort of. The garden's baobab itself was donated by the Royal Botanical Garden, Kew, London in 1983, and it is the hallmark of the entire garden. There have been 6 others that have been planted around the garden from this single one, and there have also been several others that have been planted around the city, including 2 that have been planted at the park by my father and I. I used to volunteer at this area from 2007 to 2010. These are some of the groups that we actually coordinated to serve as volunteers to maintain the garden itself. And also you can see there are some saplings that I also planted around the garden itself as well as outside. And just to give an example of something that you can use the baobab as well, there is the baobab fruit juice, which is, once you can open it, you can see there that it looks kind of white and chalky. You can actually make like a powder out of this juice, like make a powder out of it and make juice out of it. And these are some of the instructions you have. But again, this is to give an example of how plants themselves have some sort of link to all of us. And for me, it's the baobab. For you, it might be something else. But we also cannot discount weeds, as they are also important plants and important for also figuring out resources that we can use, that be it in for zero hunger, SDG 2, or something similar. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here's an opportunity for everyone in the audience to ask a question. I do believe that Dr. Kathy Dunster and her student Megan will be leaving shortly. So if there are any questions for that team, maybe we can ask that question first. Otherwise, we'll just open up to all questions. And we can also open up the chat portion of it too. Great, all right.
Collaborate with people, you bounce something off them, it helps you learn as well to bounce off ideas, figure out how to do the assignment. Often I find that if I'm working alone, there's something I don't see, so if I have someone there, they spot it, and it just helps. The assignments weren't, the largest one was probably the annotated bibliography, so it was nice that we worked on it together, because otherwise we had to do like 10 each, so it was good to have that with everyone to help with. It was fun overall. They had fun. 20 references and annotate 10. Yeah. But we ended up with, I can't remember how many were in that class, but 10 times whatever as opposed to 1 times that. There is, benefits to actually doing little pieces of a big project. And it's more fun. And as we found with iNaturalist, we got to argue with other professionals. We were doing the
there another question on the KPU side or over here on the MC side? Well, we still have a handful of presentations left. So Rajiv, let me know if it's okay to move on to a break, or if there's anybody over there that has questions. Okay, sounds good. So let's take a break, 5 minutes. We have refreshments outside, and then the bathroom or down the hall. All right.
We're going to switch over to the computer audio so that they can hear through the speakers. And Rajiv, I have to rush out. I have a flight to catch to Tennessee. But I want to thank you again, my friend, for your collaboration, your wonderful support in this project.
So I'm the Nourished from English, and I'm very interested in K-12 and especially next to Rajiv and area organizing. The project that I did with my team, I do have working projects, but I very busy talk with one from English 2600, digital age, with branding course that offered first time through fantastic group of people. They were given an assignment that was quite open-ended to be intervention into one of the UNSDGs. They were given a choice, and I had a variety of different things: apps, blogs, podcasts, videos, a whole bunch of different materials that was sitting on the page. In all of these, I encourage students to think about ethics and information, about audience, about digital rhetoric, and the ways that they can use their particular knowledge to intervene or engage finances, social issues that matter to them. And it can be all those elements and college. Sorry, I haven't actually wonderful project, which will walk through the ethics of as Jim mentioned, she was an option for which goal in doing the institute, and I would say it's one of the just leadership and transformation. I am a lawyer, so I was very drawn to our goals, and as a addition to creating a sense of awareness and an intervention, I also wanted to create a sense of fear for the leaders for my project.
Yeah, we can see what's on the one on your right.
Oh,
So that you can that's the first one.
So what I did as well was with each, so I did them as two goals, whatever we wanted to focus on, and so I attributed the each that was high, and I connected it with each country that had that most problem. And I also correlated it with so for international economic creation that had that biggest problem with outdoor. And so I correlated them and spreadsheet and I also connected it with an ethical theory which was one in utilitarianism. And with utilitarianism with a right action somewhat criminal measures budget, and then that's the lead net vaccine. So where everyone's partnering is given all situation. And with international homicides like in El Salvador, the multi-professional, right? Or the group or using that technical theory. And it's because obviously when you're no murder happens, I would obviously be lower than the next pleasure. And the country with the lowest human capital rated in Africa. And so I connected that with Kwantlen, which shows humanity has, which shows that belonging is the human trafficking. Humanity has determined, so if one action is more permissible, if the one humanity, whether it is one of one person or that of another, always with an end and never really have them see. Which means that as people, we should never treat each other as the same, but rather we should treat each other as the means to an end. So like we should treat each other as empty things for what they are. And when obviously a lot of human trafficking that happens in women with children, which is the most vulnerable population. Obviously this is violating us, according to Congress. And the country with the most illicit financial and unsmall is countries, I guess there are several countries like Kenya, Australia, Brazil, Ecuador, and Brazil. And these countries usually care about trafficking, which is also again crime, violence, and an act of terrorism. And the theory that I believe that's aligned with this issue is rural regionalism, which is the right to food is the vegetable. And second, our diet of vegetable is defined as one that is consistently followed will provide the greatest amount of network for all concerned. So everything that we do, we should follow those rules that will produce the greatest amount of happiness and network. So because illicit financial and alcohol infringes that people's rights, it's considered a more active society. Corruption is partly with the America. Corruption is the way it's on the board over there, and corruption is the way at democracy, which is a vicious cycle where corruption undermines democratic institutions, and in turn these institutions are less able to control corruption. So in terms of bribery, 1 in 5 times worldwide, reported recent at least one bribery payment was found to be dangerous to the regulatory and administrative function. As you might mention in the lens to the healthcare, and therefore and constantly universal law is a test for determining whether a particular action is morally or permissible or morally wrong. So we should only act on those maxims. So only act on those maxims that we have in normal after the universal law. So if everybody was basically, if everybody was enforcing that action, is it going to benefit the world or is it going to minimize, the net threat? And so if it's impossible for everyone to follow the rules, then that rule is wrong. So like, a simple solution for this would be like, if everybody was a parasite, the world wouldn't be sustainable. Because if we're all trying to take parts of rather than like doing our own work and we're trying to push our work and other people, we're not able to sustain. So like the world doesn't really function as a whole because no one is doing what they're supposed to do. Legal identity is a sub-Saharan African country that professional. And the social contract theory I thought would be that really formative of it. And because this theory is just a fairness, and just a theory that aims at the question how the major social institutions ought to be regulated. And it also uses this theory of the original condition, which is a hypothetical situation where people choose a principle of justice to regulate major institutions, and one of the things that we'll all talk about is the fairness, which is if true justice if we have this skill of ignorance and we're not ignore religion, race, gender, things like that, then the world would be better functioning and we wouldn't have the biases that often exist in our positioning ourselves when it comes to justice. Another target for UNSDG is to boldly promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws and policies. So, regardless of race, gender, religion, organization, which is the issue of discrimination should be treated as a global issue, and all we need to strive to ensure that no population of people feel discriminated against around. International human rights laws extend borders and regardless of one's background, should be granted their basic human rights and entitled to fair treatment where discrimination and harassment. So, virtue ethics would argue that discrimination is wrong because coverage of person will not victimize or marginalize anyone using on race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. Aristotle is the founder or the father of virtue ethics, and he talks about the best virtue being in the virtue of self. And virtue is a character trait that composes one act and deal in a way that is appropriate. An example of virtue is courage. And a virtuous person acts courageously when they are standing up for something that is being bullied. Another example is a firefighter who goes into a burning building to save lives, showing the virtue of courage. Therefore, in virtue ethics definition of what it means to live the best life is paramount as we use issues about information about it. Making virtuous decisions and being virtuous acts is a good step towards sustainability. Alright. Hi everybody. Thank you. Okay, and thank you to those of you that are joining us online. I know that some of our 18 folks are there. A lot of you can as well. My name is Candy Ho, and I teach in the Institutional Studies Department of Faculty of Arts. I get to teach my tradition courses in university transition. So, education 1100 transitioning to university, introduction to higher education, and then post-university transition, which is education 4100. So, I have the privilege to showcase two bright stars today, starting with Lisa Langley. So, let me give you a little bit of context about career connection assignments. Kudos to my colleagues Pamela and Mary Wall, as well as we collaborate on this assignment together. So, in the career development realm, one of the things that we often talk about is this notion called brand hacking. So, taking advantage of chance events, occurrences that happen in interactions of a regular day-to-day life to maximize the possibility and generate possibilities in action that will help you advance towards your career. So the career connection assignment is back into that. It's a multiple part assignment that I'm not going to say anymore, but one other concept that I can share with you is that because the course is dedicated to career development and student transitioning, rather than having me expose a particular SDG, it was extremely important for students to identify the SDG that they are passionate about, and then use that as part of their assignment. So, I'm going to invite Lisa to come and share her work.
Hello everybody, thanks for having me. My name is Lisa Wagner, and as Candy was mentioning, this course is kind of designed to transition myself into a career of teaching, and I'm an aspiring elementary school teacher. I graduated last semester. This is what I also love about this assignment is that Candy just graduated from a teaching program. She's in her first year of teaching. Lizzie is 5 years into her teaching. And that's notorious kind of like year where you decide like, or you might have stayed up on this burnout. So I really wanted to learn more about her and her journey at the moment and how she attained this burnout and remained passionate in that career. And Leslie is 28 years into her career and is also a very important teacher at the school that she was at. So we also had to prove that they were employed at schools. All 3 of them work in the same school district, and we did find them online. And they had to come up with questions for each of them that I wanted to dive a little bit more deeper into knowing, about how they're navigating their career. So they were all different questions, and they're all in 3 different stages of their career at the moment. The questions for me were more so, how has the transition from being a student to teaching your own class, how does that mean? She shared raw truth and honesty, and it was great. It helped me not be shocked and surprised that when I entered in as a class teacher that I won't be so surprised that that's true pretty tough year to go into. Had questions about whether she wanted to do further education, what her teaching philosophy is. Leslie was a teacher that had lots of experience. So I kind of asked her a bit about what teaching was like 20 years ago, what did technology look like in her classroom. She also worked at an inner city school. So her school specifically has quite a few African refugees. And navigating that is one of them how do you navigate something like that. So being able to carve out the time to ask specific questions is very beneficial for students and for just generic employee in the classroom. Leslie is the one that was 5 years into her career, so again I kind of asked questions about how does she remain passionate in the field. I also sent a thank you card for them taking the time to meet with me. About an hour long. We actually chat for quite a few hours. All of us are pretty passionate about being teachers and teaching us live. So electronically, I sent them a card with this quote, and also sent them a gift card to Starbucks. Again in the future, because I'd love to learn more about this career that I'm going to go into. And then lastly, we had a little section of reflection, where we had us answer some of these reflective questions. What would we learn? We can have an in-depth conversation with. And then question number 5 was a question about how do these conversations relate back to your identified sustainable development goals. So it's pretty obvious that I chose the quality education development goal for 4. It identifies numerous individuals that do not have access to quality education, not so much the lack of access to result in quality education. So fortunately here in Canada, there are quality education is available to everybody. However, not all education is quality in Canada. There are learners that are excluded from the classes for various reasons, such as individual people that have access. So these learners that cannot receive the quality education, they should be bullied, having low self-esteem, self-efficacy, a lack of social development, emotional development, and what goes on. Unfortunately, I believe there is a large number of students not reaching their full potential due to these obstacles, and quality teachers have the opportunity to make a difference. So I have the responsibility and the opportunity to make a difference in children and young people lives. So that basically concludes the assignment. Questions, but
My quality education after putting all of this together, I'm part of it. I forgot to mention that last week I had a conversation with the Coast University in Alberta, Australia. They're going to have a chat with you shortly about the possibility of like a full production. Yeah, thank you for quick scheduling things.
so when I was thinking about that, the first thing you want to look at education resources, and I kind of mentioned those as quality education before as development. So basically, you can find social learning materials that can be accessed and can be modified to find which is highly available for digital elements. Specifically, anything to like the textbook, learning, now podcast, they kind of structure it really you want to teach it. And so she really says like the translated into the work of course your work. So my work looking at education research is more applicable to university and a lot more flexibility to have the future. And when they don't use the textbook and we what's being taught. So there's so many goals that open educational research with the two that I found were really guiding where we work that students have like accessibility and research outcomes. Basically, any student who comes to that work or creates a get text yes, so we work with the they don't get paid for it. I know a lot of students stress about having to pay the textbook because it has cost. It's not a cost to create a budget. And the next one was they love teaching the students about early education learning which I call it one of the things that spend days with me because I learned a lot. I was wishing that elementary school I learned a lot of shit learning different ways and we just talk in different ways. So they have a lot of these shooting hands-on, see videos, use the school context of only allowed by learning. And in cons, I can find many cons of the one amount of professional training in teaching standards. There is pretty which at any school go to use the same textbook before they go to the teaching. The next one is we had the teaching standards, and basically my group was 4 costs. We have one person doing 3 courses, and the other person doing training down with each cost, 8 pointing, and then technical cost. This is kind of hard to present what the difference between teaching and directing. But you don't actually present all the time for the your experience. You learn it, they're not the same thing. We kind of hard trying to gain all the perspectives into the same presentation. But having like a word map of the things that we kind of a few projects that I've done. The couple of them are working in silos. I think people have tendency to provide themselves because they're so used to it. Black and silent. We just one we had an elder that a lot of people just trust the work that other people do in the way. Given A is another one that there's something really responsible on it, A, but they don't actually have to back to other parents for that year. And then try to everything is up to another one, and all kinds of different things as well. Together. And so I kind of the next slide focus more on the quality education. And I found a couple of instances where I think there's a lot. The recent study of strategic research conferences on context of those conferences on the survey. They look at 65% students, 35% students, and also 35% after 40% they are grade they want to be at textbook. So I don't think education should be full friendly. I think I can show that it's not. And my professor was really into open education research and I want to share high quality my teaching stuff. This was one that kind of like the concept people that wasn't high quality. It's actually both the resources and actually excellent because we all went through this. And then we actually brought this research program at APU. And in a case, it's $22 million special cost. We ran it in 2018. And then I started to see the learning. So once you start doing it, especially the chapters in the curriculum, it's spending an extra $200 on a textbook that they can account for, which is put stress on them, it makes them more informed, it can bring them their education. Every curriculum has also been very different ways. Some students learn by listening, by trying being hands-on. So I think this is one way to allow students to learn the ways that they want to learn. And then for the teaching side, looking through the essential part of lots of co-communication with a diverse subject, which is where I did that when I first wanted to have it at the same time. I kind of thought it was kind of very relevant. We actually looked at it, we can affect a lot of that's really right.
And this is great timing because it's Wednesday session. I work with her as our general people on so again, I still want to shout out to Audrey again because we used her paper that she did for us and the students in suffering and school content. The neighborhood issues that are related to them. And based on their responses, I was able to start the research more importantly. And their SDG was related to diversity.
try and get help and then kind of give up. Like, I don't understand what's going on. So that was another reason why we wanted to do our lecture, is to have kind of all the main information in one place so that students aren't overwhelmed. So yeah, so what did we put into our lecture? So the main thing that we wanted to focus on was teaching students to learn the time what are they able to do. We also wanted to put in other resources for students going pregnant and things like that. And of course, why I'm like one of the biggest things we came across for our leaders was that I think really really right. The number one reason that university students don't go get help for this college issues because they don't think they need it. And I can say myself kind of looking at this because you're so busy, like look at the first level that I wrote my time on this whole time. And you kind of get moments to go over to the conference. And you're like, oh, I'm fine, and I'm not crying on the floor every night, like I don't need to get help or anything. But you did want to emphasize in a brochure, like, you know, you don't have to be going through these crises to, you know, help. You can tie a lot of help, you know, especially if the student is thinking back, especially if you were really not really using so much time. So we wanted to get out there, you know, some data, so there's a big problem, like, totally fine to go super on top of normal to get help, even with small things. Even if you don't have a problem, you still have to get help about it. That's something that I learned. Yeah, so this is just, we put this actually from the 16 after the we wanted to show people, even in class, not just using it for that. Like, there are all these lists of things and more that you go and watch them and being a better and we also interested in the presentation, but one of the things we talked about a lot was the effect of mental health for international students. So it's even harder for international students to come to the university too, and doing all these things and not being know how to reach out. And so we also did our research, we did a lot of intercultural research into why people from other cultures might not want to reach out. So in our presentation, it's both when I have so it talks about, you know, like sometimes there are things you might have been brought up to me that, you know, if you have a problem, it's neat for it, you know, to support it. I don't want to say, but here it has a mission. Like these technical things I have, like for the politics, families that don't want to feel this way. And even if you don't feel comfortable right now, it's people that have support activities for the long haul. Really looking at what you're trying to do to have this value, be honest, and go after your help. That was kind of our interaction. We had a couple of times. And yeah, and so we just kind of like focus on it. It was really hard to work. It was really like, well, you have to over it. It was really cool one too. And one of the things that I learned from my experience is that you have to have a and so when we go to coming from a cutting, things like that, we get annoyed to like why I sit all the time, you don't realize it's actually connected to mental health, like the mind, you have to figure out stuff, you don't like figure it out, or you not like that. And yeah, so these were just kind of some of the, you know, things on it as well. And I kind of like this way to tell people do not. Like, yeah, so we just said, well, let's just really like, you know, students do have issues, and a lot of them do, so we realize it. Even more so than other stuff. We ended our project and we kind of ended
So just I'm just looking at this, I don't see it on the screen, but there are any questions from the room and the public?
Any questions from here live in Montgomery? Yeah, well. Well, Rajiv and KPU, I don't know if you heard that, but I will repeat. So Laura's comment was that she appreciated the career and connection presentation because when you had just, say that part again, when you had just graduated with your credentials and a recession hit and you weren't sure how to job hunt. So she appreciated learning more about that. And that as an opportunity for other students to learn more about how to learn those resources and make those connections. So thank you. Any other questions from here? Well, I have a question, and this is actually for the students. For any of the students who are still here or at KPU, what did this whole experience do for you? Yeah. Sure. My question is for the students. What did this whole experience do for the students? And so Franz rose his hand. Franz, I'm going to hand this to you. So I don't have to repeat. You can stay seated.
Okay, so for me, this whole experience made me realize how interrelated all of the areas
Chitra, I'm starting to hear you again. I don't know why, but the phone is not as good as it was before.
Okay. Look, I don't know what I'm. All right. No, battery's at 70, and my volume's on high, so I'm not quite sure. From this?
Broadcasting from the other microphone. But while we do this meeting, I can ask a question to most of the students participated at home. One of the things we did in Montgomery is the group wrote down some of your comments in March at the end, talking about how, oh my god, I did my teacher's help, that actually interesting. Also, unusual that it's quite striking. And I was interested in just as you experiences and positive way. This kind of assignment is the exception or the rule that you mentioned you over to like communicate to our instructors why we're suggesting this kind of approach that good for if that is not because we have schools like better. It's how we want to instruct other students to learn other things that how it's like.
I thought that I thoroughly enjoyed it because majority of the books that I did is very structured and the assignment kind of gave me a broader sense of like a direction on my own in my own time. So it was like really easy that it was just greatly different because rather than like kind of telling me what to do A to B, Sharon kind of gave us the opportunity to just pick our own goals, pick what format path we wanted to present our project. And then that way we were kind of just really opportunity to kind of just really think on it and the whole, like I think there's a lot of physical awareness of discussing especially a goal. But then because I was able to apply it through like my major philosophy, I saw philosophy and the theory and the normative ethical aspects of it just in a different light because it wasn't all the structure. So when I started
email. Or the person who is like, even if you're there you go, but like, you kind of have that, like, you want to be loved.
So, you know, I think that's a lot. What fact they will put in the experience, but you're always unsure if that degree of, you know, choosing your own preferential, it will terrify students, so that, you know, like, seeing that in the way.
So, Rajiv, we have a student over here, Eduardo. He would like to say a few words. So, can you hear me, first of all?
It's still that muffled. I don't think the phone is coming through. I think it might be.
Doing it through this. Okay. Switch this to this. Okay, now can you hear us? Rajiv, can you hear us now?
Does this work?
All right. Now, Rajiv, can you hear us? Sorry. Is this better? Okay. All right. Wonderful. I'm going to hand this over to our student, Eduardo.
Well, one of the things that one of the students mentioned is that each project felt like it was our own, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I do believe that each of our projects was one that we worked on together, that we poured our hearts into, but it's also one that it's important to realize that these are all by the United Nations for the Sustainable Development Goals. And by making it our own, we're also impulsing a goal that's shared by all of us. And I believe that's a very important point to make, that it's not just about following, guidelines from the United Nations. It's actually making it our own and treating it as important to ourselves.
All right. Thank you. Rajiv, any other questions? What about here at Montgomery College? Any other questions? We'll soon end with our closing remarks.
I'm not getting any other learning questions over here, so.
Okay. And same here. So I just want to first of all thank everybody who participated and who attended, the faculty fellows, the students themselves, Rajiv, Mike, we're wonderful partners in this work, and we are so excited about what has transpired over the last several months with these projects. And we're even more excited about the next iteration of the Summer 2020 Fellowship, in which we will have Maricopa Community College System in Arizona be our third set of partners. So for those of you who are interested, please be on the lookout. This is open to part-time and full-time faculty here at Montgomery College. The call for applications will come out next week in honor of Open Education Week. So March 2nd or March 3rd is when it will come out on the NC side as well as the KPU side. And then these will be the directions. There will be some summer meetings to attend. And then hopefully you can be a part of this transformational work in the future. Rajiv, over to you.
Thank you, and I think yeah, no, thank you. I think we're excited for the phone to go out. I was going to say for folks who have already seen off the KPU website that talks about the SDG fellowship, one of the nice things is the faculty have already been involved in the creation of these brief videos that have them talking about their assignments, their motivations behind it, their goals for it. And of course, those were all created before the assignments were actually fully deployed in most cases. So hopefully we'll be able to use that as an experience to inspire more. But otherwise, just very grateful again for your leadership, allowing us to play with you and learn from you. And of course, the ripple effect to the faculty and then to the students on board. So, Maricopa is a massive community college system. You know, in Arizona, there's also the GPS, the open education movement. That's a very nice set it up.
Thank you so much for everyone. How about a round of applause for everyone? All right, so I guess we will end it. Unless, Reggie, if you have anything, anyone over there at KU has anything, or MC? We're all set. Thank you again, everybody. Wonderful showcase. Thank you, students. Thank you, faculty.